Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
Alright, so Ye, or Kanye West, has issued an apology for his anti-Semitism, his Nazism. He blames it on his head injury that he received in the famous car crash that was really right at the beginning of his career, and says that essentially that resulted in bipolar disorder, or I guess a worsened form of bipolar disorder, leading to his erratic behavior, and as he says, even when he's on his meds, still ruining his life once a year, and that sort of thing. He also says pointedly that the doctors that diagnosed him with autism instead, which was something that he came out and said, that he was exhibiting signs of autism and not bipolar disorder. So now he has reneged on that, as well as calling himself a Nazi, and says he loves Jewish people. Now look, he's done all this before. This is like the fourth time he's apologized. He seems to be pretty cynical about it. I don't really buy this, but before getting to all the stuff about the apology, I wanted to highlight what Anthony Fantano said about it. First of all, because I just wanted to cover this apology, but also because Anthony Fantano did an interesting thing the last time Kanye put out an album where he kind of refused to review it. He still acknowledged the album, but refused to give it a traditional review, which actually pissed a lot of people off, especially in Kanye's Nazi fan base. So it was a pointed and I think the correct choice that he made to specifically refuse to review the album or give it a traditional review. And that's why I think his opinion on this matter holds some weight, although he was a little bit forgiving of Kanye. Not totally, not saying that Kanye is forgiven or anything, but definitely open to the possibility of forgiveness for Kanye, which I'm not sure if I quite share that opinion. But anyway, here's what Anthony Fantano had to say about that, and then we'll get into all the rest of it, as well as what's going on with ICE in Minneapolis, etc.
I don't doubt that there's an element of him genuinely thinking and feeling these things that he said in the past to some degree, because there are people who think all sorts of wild shit in the world, who are influenced by all sorts of like propaganda, false information, especially in the internet age. We're watching the biggest information platforms that we've all grown up with over the past 10 years all become enshittified, all become subverted, all become algorithmically biased, all become just propaganda machines for either those who run them or for those who are willing to pay the most money. And the most impressionable and least educated among us and the most paranoid among us are being taken advantage of by those systems and by all of that misinformation. And that's not to say that, anybody who befalls that or falls into that should be immediately forgiven and acting like it's not their fault and they had no control in it. No. But we should acknowledge the modern day reality that we're living in and sort of like looking at what Kanye has kind of like fallen into here as like a bit of a symptom of a larger problem that many people sadly are suffering through to some degree, either by virtue of being on the other end of those misinformation campaigns, or again, just falsely believing BS because you just don't know better and you don't have the information. Will I review his music now? It depends on whether or not he can sort of like keep his head together. It'll depend because, look, I've said that my commentary on his music is very much dependent on whether or not he is using his platform to destroy those who are less powerful than him, and it's predicated on whether or not he's using his platform to destroy anybody who would dare criticize him. To me, to be harassed by Nazis in his fan base, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. To sort of just like treat his music and treat his albums as if they're like, these completely neutral things that we can just sort of like engage in good faith with like no cognizance of the greater context that's happening around them. So again, very much looking forward to hopefully a more positive era from this guy. And once more, if you see anybody complaining in his comments about, the direction he's taking here, that's a good thing. That's a sign that these people are feeling like, oh man, I don't have this, like, all the people who feel these things and endorse this ideology, they're all very like wimpy, scared, annoying, bigoted dickheads who don't have a mind and an opinion of their own. The only reason they feel the way that they do is because they feel emboldened by the fact that there are other freaks and morons and weirdos around them who feel the same way, and they only feel more justified in feeling this way and voicing these opinions because they see a guy the size of Kanye who is putting it out there and saying it. That's why their social media figureheads and their propagandists are so important to them, because they sort of soften the world to their ideology, and they soften the world to their propaganda because they're putting it out there over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, so like I said, the last time Kanye dropped an album, Anthony Fantano refused to review it. I believe he called it unreviewable, and then did make a video where he essentially went over his reasons why and referenced some things from the album in that video, but ultimately it was a statement to say, not only is this an unreviewable hunk of shit, but also Kanye is morally repugnant at the moment, and so it would be morally repugnant to review this work. And I think that that's the correct way to go about it. It requires a special exception. And I think Nazism and fascism in general, but definitely Nazism, is so particularly odious that it requires special exceptions and being made special note of. And that's the kind of thing that happens when you commit world historic war crimes and crimes against humanity, is that there always needs to be a footnote next to any reference to you or anything about you that emphasizes the horribleness of it, and certainly anything that promotes Nazism anywhere, if not outright censored, should be heavily footnoted and should always have an asterisk next to it. It's just good practice. And essentially it's anti-Nazism, it's anti-fascism in practice. And I believe as a society, especially considering what we're going through now, you have to always have that practice of anti-fascism. It's not something that comes on its own or that you can take for granted. It has to be a practice in your society. And in some cases, the censorship or whatever can go too far, but ultimately it's healthy for society, a society that has allowed some form of fascism or Nazism to happen. It's healthy for it to institute some form of social and legal anti-fascism and anti-Nazism. So that's why I thought that even if that wasn't necessarily Anthony's intention and he was just thinking about how he was going to cover that album at the time, I think it was a good choice in terms of that. So what he says here about how, the Nazis and the bots and the people that would come after him, depending on him talking about Kanye's project, and really either way, because they came after him because he did the unreviewable thing. If he reviewed it negatively, they would come after him. They're going to come after him no matter what. But I think that kind of gets to the core of why there's more to be done here, because this apology seems pretty surface level to me. It seems like Kanye definitely, if he can, he's just going to try to continue on with his career, continue making music, maybe drop the Hitler stuff, maybe not, maybe just keep making cheeky jokes about it. But because he's released this press release that's supposed to ameliorate it, like I said, he's done this before. He did an apology on Instagram that was like written by ChatGPT, one that was written in Hebrew, and he also did this video recently sitting down with some rabbi, talking to some rabbi, supposedly showing forgiveness. Bizarre video. And Anthony points out fairly that since that video, Kanye hasn't done or said anything that goes back into this like Nazi territory. So it's possible that he has changed his mind, and both of those so-called apologies are a part of that. I still don't know if I buy it. And really, the most prominent thing that has happened in recent days regarding Kanye is Andrew Tate, Nick Fuentes, Sneeko, and Myron Gaines of the Fresh and Fit podcast. They did some like weird meetup, like manosphere Nazi meetup or something. I can't remember what the pretext for it was, but they were in Florida and somebody put on this song, I think in multiple occasions, in a car and in the club. They put on Kanye's Heil Hitler song, and they were doing the Nazi salute to it, and that ended up being a whole thing. They got like banned from the area because these videos went viral of them doing the Hitler salute and singing along to this song. So what they thought was, them doing a cultural victory lap and reveling in the careless hatred that they have brought to the forefront ended up giving all of them enormous backlash that actually hurt all of their careers. These are all guys that thrive in this like uncancelable space, and all of them got a walloping and are now pointing the finger at each other over the fact that they played this Heil Hitler song, and it turned into major backlash for all of them. And so it's possible that that's why we're getting this apology. Also, Kanye is supposed to be dropping more music soon. I want to say to anybody listening to this is not an advertisement for Kanye's music. You shouldn't listen to it. If he drops any more, you should actively avoid it. And I think that's most people's reaction to this apology, is that there's more apologizing to be done. He has to show that he's actually sorry, as well as a lot of people saying that this isn't really an apology to the black community for all the things that he has said to undermine their progress, like coming out with Candace Owens wearing a White Lives Matter shirt, or the things that he said about slavery. I mean, he's making this blanket apology to those I've hurt. Okay, and that's great. But ultimately, what he has said has caused real harm. I mean, we're in the midst of a Trump administration that is rolling back DEI, not to mention this ICE activity in the streets, pulling people out of their homes, killing people in the streets. And this is all a gradual process of normalization, not just of Trump-style fascism, but also Nazism, which you get many references to from within the administration and all of that. And Kanye was perfectly happy to revel in that this entire time. And so there's a certain amount of denazification that needs to happen in our society. That's what's next here. And I'm not sure exactly what that process looks like, what's going to happen after these midterms, how much worse things are going to get from here. But ultimately, Kanye participated in the Nazification of America. He was an incredibly prominent voice. I don't know how you would square his influence with like MAGA, recruiting people into MAGA, whatever. It's hard to know because he's such an odd figure to be promoting things like Hitler. But ultimately, he's one of the most prominent voices, certainly, to ever promote Adolf Hitler. And the song that he made about Hitler has to be, one of the most mainstream, normalized songs about Adolf Hitler ever made. Probably more so than in Nazi Germany. So, I mean, this is a huge amount of culpability and responsibility that we're talking about with Kanye here. And if you're going to participate in the Nazification of America like that, and then you're going to say sorry, then you have to participate in the denazification of America. And in general, that's really what we're talking about here with this moment that we've reached, this fever pitch when it comes to ICE. Who knows how much further it's going to go, but it seems like the administration is backing off a little bit, and they have fired Greg Bovino, or they've demoted him to his previous position, and he's supposed to retire and fuck off. And now it looks like Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller, as well as Corey Lewandowski, are in the spotlight. Stephen Miller, in my opinion, is putting the attention on those two. Who the fuck was talking about Corey Lewandowski? So right now, heads are rolling, and they're trying to decide whose head is going to roll over what. They are trying to tamp this down. They're not trying to keep doubling down. What they've done is they've removed some of the Border Patrol agents from Minneapolis, as well as Greg Bovino and some of the ICE agents, but they're going to continue operations there. So they're trying to tone it down, but they're not stopping. And what they're doing is they're running in fear of what people have been talking about lately, which is a general strike this Friday, January 30th. And Stephen Miller, I believe, knows that he is the one whose head is really on the chopping block here, because everybody knows that all of this policy goes back to Stephen Miller. I don't want to hear anything else about it. Kristi Noem is a fucking figurehead. Corey Lewandowski, who the fuck knows what he's doing? He's getting people coffee. I don't know. I haven't heard his name since the first Trump administration. So I believe he's there behind the scenes, but if there's one person whose head needs to roll over this, it's Stephen Miller. And since this talk of the general strike is happening, there needs to be some real talk about what the demands are. I'm seeing ICE out everywhere as the demand connected to the strike on Friday, and I think that it's probably necessary to get more specific. Abolish ICE is a tempting demand, and certainly with enough political pressure, that could happen. Anything could happen when you're talking about using a strike as leverage. Literally anything is on the table. So that's important to keep in mind. However, we do got to think about what the conditions are here. So Trump doesn't want to get removed from office after the midterms, and it's starting to look like things are turning hard away from the Republicans' favor. And I do not believe they're going to be able to fully cancel the elections by midterms. Maybe they'll try, we'll see. But as of right now, they're not acting like that. They're acting like they're worried about what's going to happen in the midterms. And so I believe that one of the things that could be called for in a general strike is the removal of Trump from office, as well as J.D. Vance. I've argued for that because then, even if it's Mike Johnson at the head of the presidency, he would still be under the pressure of the strike activity, which could continue. The point is, what exactly are the demands? Is it the deposal of the Trump administration, or is it more focused on ICE, removal of ICE from cities, abolishment of ICE? I think that a very gettable ask is Stephen Miller out and full amnesty for all immigrants in the country. All immigrants with no convictions, every single one gets full amnesty. Now, Trump has already considered this because at the very beginning, when he was instituting these raids against people working on farms and large industrial companies, those people owning those companies were pressuring Trump to grant amnesty to immigrants. They were talking about that, and they wanted him to go that route when it came to immigration. So Stephen Miller was probably one of the main ones who didn't want to do that, and I imagine Trump wants to have his bragging rights on immigration as well. And so what I'm saying is that if we want a gettable win right now, asking for Stephen Miller out, which is a huge win in my opinion, and full amnesty for immigrants so that these ICE raids stop, is a gettable ask in the short term. Abolish ICE, I think, is something that makes more sense when you have Democrats in control or something other than Republicans, whatever's going to come in this next election cycle. But the point is that whatever it's going to be, trials for ICE, full liquidation of ICE, and hanging of the people in charge, whatever it is, it's going to have to be a concerted process and project of denazification that is taken on by very powerful people. And one of the powerful people that could take on that mission would be Kanye West. And one of the ways that you can advocate for the denazification of America in the short term is to advocate for this general strike action aimed at abolishing ICE, whatever, removing Stephen Miller, removing Donald Trump, whatever it is. It's all in the name of denazification in America. But when it comes to making these demands for this labor action, we have to be clear that that's the goal, and we have to be practical about that as well, because abolishing ICE might not be the most gettable ask under the Trump administration. If it seems like there's an opening for that, we should go for it. But ultimately, I think Trump is going to be eager to blame somebody, and Stephen Miller, I think, is probably the most insidious person in the administration aside from Trump himself. And amnesty for immigrants is something that Trump has at least showed a tiny bit of openness to in the past, and would solve this problem of brutal ICE raids overnight. So just a suggestion from my end.
Me too close to, too much to do. The mission is too crucial. Shout it out from the rooftops until I lose vocals. Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity.